A at the very top, the top line. We're continuing to discuss the whole issue of if witnesses bring a get from outside of the land of Israel, they have to testify that I witnessed it being written and signed. And so there are a lot of issues around that we've been discussing. And the latest thing, we just had a statement yesterday of Rav Ashi. What exactly do they have to witness in terms of it being written? So he said, like, you don't have to actually see the writing. It's enough even if you hear the scribe scratching the pen over the parchment. That's good enough. And so we have a support for that. The first line is 6a, Tani Kavasi Rashi. We have a supporting brisa. Maybe get Nisayam, a person who brings a get from overseas, a filahu b'vayis so for valiyah, even if the witness at the time of the writing of the get was in the house, meaning on the main floor, and the sofer, the writer, was in the attic on the second floor. Or who baliyah v'sofer b'vayis, or the opposite. Afilu nichnas v'yotzei kol pulo, even if he, we'll see who he was, who he means, was coming and going all day long. Kosher, it's good. Who b'vayis v'sofer baliyah. Now, if the agent is in the main floor and the scribe is upstairs, halakha chazilay. Gemara says, well, you didn't see it, right? Like, what kind of witnessing is that? Meaning that you don't actually have to witness it. You have to be there. There has to be some. You don't have to see it as with regular testimony, but if it's enough, if you just were in the house and you heard the scratching of the pen on the parchment. Amar, now we just said one of the scenarios is that he was coming and going all day. Man, who's the he? We're talking about the agent who's bringing the get and who's testifying. Fine. Amar Kasher. So you already said that that even if you're not in the same room, right, but you're on the first floor and the scribe is on the second floor, that's okay. So like coming in and out of the actual room, like what do you even have to say that for? Now you could have done this the other way around, kind of. You could have interpreted this as like if you're actually leaving the house, maybe that's not good enough, but that's not what the Gemara is inferring. The Gemara is inferring that, look, you don't even have to be in the same room at all. So what do you care if you're like, so obviously if you're going in and out of the room, then that's certainly valid, right? So Ella Sofer. So it must be that the scribe is the one that's coming and going. So Pshita, that's obvious. Like, we're not saying that he wrote it outside of the house. He's in the house. He's writing. He takes a break. He goes outside for a walk, and he comes back and finishes writing. So, like, why should that? What does that have to do with the get? It has nothing to do with the get at all, right? Why should that be a problem? Where it says Lotzricha, and this is how we understand it. The nafak will shuk avasa. What happened is he went out to the market. Maybe while he was in the market, he's a scribe. This is what he does for a living. Maybe he went to his scribe booth in the marketplace, and someone else comes up and says, "You know what? I'm divorcing my wife. I want to hire you to write my get." And then the scribe goes back to the house and he continues writing the get. Who's he writing it for? Right? The whole point is we want to know that this get was written for the person that we don't want to know who it's written for. So if so what our Bryce is telling us is we don't have to worry about that. Even if the sofer, the scribe, was coming and going all day, and it's possible that someone else engaged him to write a get, we're not worried about that. Okay. Itmar. We said Bavel, Rav Amar Keretz Yisrael Gittin. Rav said that Bavel is like the land of Israel when it comes to writing a get. In other words, you don't have to have this testimony that I saw it. The agent doesn't have to say I saw it written or seal or sign. Shmuel says no. Bavel is outside of the land of Israel. This has the same rules as any other place. Maybe this is the source of their disagreement. Maybe, like we'd seen two reasons for why we have to do this, why there has to be this testimony. One is that maybe they're not experts outside of the land of Israel. But in Babylonia, which is the center of Torah, and all the yeshivas are there, right? Maybe that's an exception, right? It's not like Timbuktu where there's nobody who went to yeshiva. It's Babel. It's like, it's like Lakewood, right? Like, don't tell me you go to Lakewood and people don't know the traditions, right?
Liquid ear HaKodesh.
Yeah. Umar Savar. So then Babel would be like Eretz Yisrael. Umar Savar, the other holds, Lefisha Ein Edim Mitzvah Kaimo, because it's far away, right? You don't have the ability to interrogate the witnesses, right? So Babel is indeed far away. It's no further than other places. It's just as far as from Eretz Yisrael as other places. So it should qualify as Chutz La'aretz. These people are also not there. The Tizbra says, what? You think that's what they're arguing about? Harabba Yislay the Rava, but we already know that Rabba agrees with Rabba that you need a declaration to confirm these signatures. So like, even if you're going from one province to another, we saw that you have to have this declaration. So certainly coming from Babel to Eretz Yisrael, like, it doesn't help you that it's that people know what they're doing about. Oh, the Kuliyama being on time. Everybody says you have to have this declaration to confirm the get. Rav Savar Kevan Ika Masivta Mishkach Shricha. Rav holds that since it's a center of Torah, right? So people will be coming and going there all the time, right? You have, Ben Azmani, people are going to come home. So Mishkach Shricha and the witnesses can be found for confirmation. Shmuel Savar Masivta B'Girsat Tride. What is this Ben Azmani? What are you talking about? The people in the yeshiva? The people in the yeshiva, they never go out, right? They're sitting in yeshiva all day studying, right? They're not going to be able to go out and locate witnesses for you. What do you think, they're on vacation and at the beach? No, they're in the yeshiva. So you can't say that Bavel is special in that way, even though there's a lot of traffic going back and forth. That doesn't help you when it comes to locating witnesses, because their destination is only to the yeshiva. We have another support. This Amar Abba Rav Huna Asino Atzmeinu to Bavel Keretz Yisrael Gittin. Michias Rav LeBavel. And Rabbi Abba said that once Rav came to Bavel, then we considered ourselves like Israel, like the land of Israel for Gittin. What happened when Rav came to Eretz Yisrael? He built a yeshiva, right? So this supports the idea that, like, once Rav established the yeshiva there, everybody wanted to go there, so there was a lot of traffic. So that would explain why one opinion is that Bavel is like Eretz Yisrael, because there was a lot of traffic. Okay, Master Revere asks. But Shmuel's opinion was still different. Shmuel is still held that it's not the case, that they're supposed to be in yeshiva. They're not supposed to be out there where they can encounter the witnesses. Master Revere asks, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mirekem Lemizrach, Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah, that what is considered the boundary of Eretz Yisrael for the purposes of Gittin, from Rechem to the east. So the Rechem Kamizrach, and Rechem itself, the border city, is actually considered outside the border of Israel. Me'ashkelon l'darim ve'ashkelon kedarim. To the south, it's Ashkelon, and the city of Ashkelon itself is already outside the border. Me'akko tzafon ve'akko katzafon. Same thing, Akko in the north, and Akko itself is considered outside the border.
In other places, the various sources in Chazal have different definitions of what's in and out.
The land of Israel. Right.
Yeah, they usually say the Akshiv is the northern boundary, and that's north of Akko.
Right. So usually that has to do with agriculture, right? And what is considered for agriculture. So here you have to bear in mind that the whole reason, like the very fact that we're considering making an exception of Bavel, right, it tells you right away that we're not talking about like the physical boundaries in terms of what the Torah considers Eretz Yisrael. This is a question of the reality, right? How people come back and forth from place to place, right? Or what is the level of expertise of the people outside of these boundaries? So it's clearly not in terms of the holiness of Eretz Yisrael or the other boundaries for other purposes. This is a specific purpose which the other boundaries may or may not, don't really have any bearing here. It's more a question of the reality of the availability of the witnesses or the expertise of the people beyond these places. Which gives rise to the question, like, why just Bavel, right? What if there's another place where, outside of these boundaries, maybe in the holiness boundaries of Israel or maybe elsewhere, Lakewood, right? Is Lakewood like Eretz Yisrael?
Or in the time this was written, there was a huge Jewish community in Alexandria, Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And there was
although by the evidence we have, I think that they maybe were not considered so reliable because of the existence of an alternate temple there, right? And
the Yerushalmi describes a significant Jewish community in Rome.
In Rome, right?
I don't remember ever seeing it mentioned in the Bavli.
And you also have a lot of stories of the Tanaim traveling to Rome.
Right.
Right?
Right.
In the Mishnah, actually, right?
In the Mishnah, right.
Yeah. So the whole thing seems to be a bit of a theoretical construct. Often like in legal issues, once you establish a principle, or it's not the principle so much, once the principle establishes facts on the ground, then those kind of become the criteria rather than the original principle. It doesn't seem very satisfactory, but that's what seems to be going on here.
I just looked up Rechem in Wikipedia, and apparently that was the original name for what we now know as Petra.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Clearly not a Jewish city.
Not at all. But definitely, it was a trade center, right? So
definitely
in terms of people traveling back and forth, right? That would make sense. Yep. Right? Interesting. Yep. It's pretty far south too, right?
It's pretty far south, yes.
Interesting. You ever been, by the way?
I've never been there. No, that's on my bucket list.
Definitely.
It's way further south than Ashkelon.
Probably right. Let's look at the map. But yeah, probably right.
Definitely. It's not that far east either.
Right. Definitely should put it on your bucket list. We were there, I don't know, like 10 years ago. And it was fantastic.
Cool.
And I'm a big fan of Lawrence of Arabia, so that whole country there,
yes.
Yeah, it's just.
I remember the
like a fantasy
land where they attack Aqaba from land.
The hills. Yeah.
That would have been from the area. They would have been coming from the area around Petra.
I guess so. Yeah. Okay. So anyway. Okay. All right. So we've established these boundaries, and the cities are outside the boundaries. Bavel was founded in Eretz Yisrael, kind of. Now, Bavel is certainly north of Israel. Actually, it's northeast, but the approach, the route to get there, you have to go north before you go east. So, Dichsiv and the supporting verses, in Yirmiyahu is told by God from the north is where the trouble will come. And then talking about Nebuchadnezzar, king of Bavel, right? So clearly Bavel is considered to the north, Utnan. And we have a Mishnah, or Meir Omer, Akko Eretz Yisrael Gittin. Akko is like Eretz Yisrael. Now, even Rameir is only including Akko. Akko is close, right? It's right on the border, right? So fine. So you can say Akko is included in Eretz Yisrael for the purpose of Bavel, the miracle. But Bavel, like, what's this whole idea of including Bavel in the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael? Who mostly love, whom so he answered his own question. Bavel's an exception. It doesn't mean that like all the territory stretching from the land of Israel all the way to Bavel is considered like Eretz Yisrael. No, Bavel is a separate space. It's an exception. All right. So what are the boundaries of Bavel? Right. Amar Papa says, "Machlokus liyochsin kach machlokus ligittin." The same argument that we had about lineage. We have the same. It's the same border. So, the Gemara elsewhere talks about where is lineage considered reliable in terms of like who's a Kohen, who's not a Kohen, etc. So Bavel was considered to be very reliable. The records there were impeccable. So there, the Gemara there in Kiddushin has discusses what are the boundaries of Bavel. So it's like, see there. Rav Yosef Amar V'chachos Liyuchsin Aval Gittin Tibrakol Ad Arba Tinyana de Gishra. No, there's a discussion about Yachtin, about lineage, but as far as a get is concerned, the boundary is the second swamp beyond the bridge. Okay, so there was I guess a well-known bridge over the Euphrates, and you cross that bridge and you go to the second swamp, and then that's the border, that's the boundary regarding Gittin. Okay, good to know. Rav Chisda required this declaration for witness or for agents who were bringing a get from Aktisphon to Bei Ardashir, both places in Babylonia.
They were opposite sides of the Tigris River.
But going the other way, he didn't require it. Why not? So maybe this is an indication that the whole reason for this is that they're not experts in some places. So this would make sense, right? That if in place A they're experts, so we don't need to worry about the testimony of agents coming from there, but going to there from a place where they're not expert, you would. Right, that makes sense. So Gemara says, the Tizbra, like, is that what you think? Baha Rava Islay to Rava. But we saw before again that Rava agrees with Rava that you do need the declaration to confirm the signatures. And since the get is being delivered in a different province than the one that it started in, it shouldn't matter. So why isn't there a reciprocal requirement? Everyone agrees that the reason is to confirm the signature. One of these was a market town, right? Everybody would go from the smaller place or the non-market town to the market town, right? And so they did business there. So they recognized people's signatures, but nobody ever came from the market town to the little provincial town, right, where there was no market. So those people would not recognize the signatures of the people from the other locality. And one second. But the question is, like, why, like, if they're mingling, in the market town, why don't the residents of the market town know the signatures of the other people? So the answer is we should kind of treat it because no, the people in the market town, they know everybody's signatures because those people are always coming and signing contracts. But the people who are traveling to the market town, they don't know the signatures of all the people in the market town because they're busy with their business, right? They're not there to go to the bar. They're not there to meet people. They're there to conduct their business. So whoever they're doing business with, they know, but the other people, they don't know.
Ctesiphon was not just a market town. In the time of the Amoraim, it was the capital of the Persian Empire.
Oh, really? Okay.
And obviously a non-Jewish city.
Uh-huh.
It's an archaeological site now. It's near Baghdad.
Oh, no kidding.
The Muslims put the capital in Baghdad, which is close to there.
That's a relatively modern or recent city, right? Baghdad, if I remember right.
Baghdad was founded during the Abbasid Caliphate, which would have been in the time of the Gaonim.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there were people there earlier, but the capital was put there. But none of these places would be Jewish cities. They're probably Jews there, but it's not I've never heard of Torah centers in either one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Rabbi Baravua Masrich me Arsa Arsa. Rabbi Baravua required this testimony, even when you're delivering from one townhouse complex to another, like just across the street. Rav Sheshes Masrich Mishchuna L'Shchuna. Rav Sheshes says now he required it if you're going from one part of town to another part of town. Rava Masrich Biosa Shchuna. Rava required it even within the same neighborhood. Well, Rava but isn't Rava the one that says because the witnesses aren't available, but if it's nearby, they should be available. Shani b'nei Mechuza denied because where he lived in Mechuza, people were always traveling. People were not rooted, so they don't have the opportunity to recognize each other's signatures. Rav Chanin Mishnai, Rav Chanin told the following story. Rav Kana Isigit. Rav Kana was bringing a get from one place to another. Either he was bringing it from the Narda to Surah or vice versa, but they're both places in cities in Babel. Also, coming to Rav. Rav Kana came to Rav. He said, do I have to testify that it was written before me? Rav says no. Surprisingly, the Avdas Ahanis, but if you do, then it counts. It works. What does it mean? My Avdas Ahanis, what do you mean it works? Like if you don't have to do it, what do you need it to work for? The Asi Bal Ma'arer, what he means is if the husband comes and challenges the get, with your testimony, we pay no attention to the husband. Like if we've got your testimony, that's a guarantee against the husband trying to invalidate the get later. Kidatanya, we have a similar brisa. A certain person brought a get to Rabbi Yishmael. Amar, he said, do I have to testify this that it was written before me? Amar, he said to him, where are you from? Amar, Rebbe, Mikfar Sisaya. I'm from this place called Kfar Sisai. Presumably that's a place in Israel. Amar, he said, you do have to say it. So that the woman won't need witnesses should there be a dispute about the get. Then so he goes out. Nichnas l'fanav Rabbi Eli. Rabbi Eli comes to Rabbi Shmuel. Amar, he said, Rabbi v'lo Kfar Sisai muvlas b'tchum Eretz Yisrael. Isn't Kfar Sisai in the land of Israel? So there's no requirement to begin with. Not only is it in Eretz Yisrael, it's closer to Tzipori, which is maybe that's where Rabbi Shmuel lived, or
Where
whatever.
Rebbe,
I'm sorry.
it's where Rebbe lived earlier.
Where Rebbe lived. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean that's definitely like the heart of the land of Israel. That certainly one of the centers of the land of Israel. So it's certainly it's closer than Akko. So it's the south, further south than Akko. So it's got to be in Eretz Yisrael. So why are you even discussing like whether he should say b'fanei nichtav utnan? So Gemara interjects. We have a Mishnah. Akko Eretz Yisrael Gittin. Akko is considered within Eretz Yisrael. But Filu Rabban, and even the rabbis that say no, Akko is outside Eretz Yisrael. They're only arguing about Akko itself. That is, and that's further north than what we're talking about. This Kfar Sisai, Kfar Sisai, but Kfar Sisai, which is south of Akko, is certainly within the border. Hello, so Shmuel answers, "Shtok v'nishtok." Be quiet. Ho v'yatsa davar b'heter yatsa. Since I already sent them away. Since the whole point of this declaration is to make it easier on the woman, that the get shouldn't be challenged later, or the challenge shouldn't be paid any attention to. So this idea is the cat's out of the bag, actually. Like once we've approved this idea that it's a good idea to even a requirement in some cases to have this testimony so that the get can't be challenged, the ideas also can be applied to the case where it's not necessary. Even in the land of Israel, it's still a good idea, even though it's not required. Okay, that's interesting. So ha'iyud name, even Rabbi Shmuel, he's saying that you're making this declaration. It doesn't have the force of actual like two-person valid testimony, right? So, um, so, so in Rabbi Shmuel's statement to Rabbi Eli, um, in the no, in his statement to the first guy, right, to the agent himself, like he said his reason in his ruling. He said, you know what, it's a good idea so that we won't have to rely on actual witnesses should there be a complaint or a challenge to the get. So what's Rabbi Eli like? What's his problem? Like clearly, Rabbi Shmuel indicated that it's not a requirement, but it's a good idea. So we when Rabbi Eli heard what Rabbi Eli heard, he didn't hear the end of the story, right? He just heard about the ruling, but he didn't hear so that we won't require witnesses. Had he heard that, he wouldn't have asked this question. Rabbi Yasser sent the following question to Rav Chisda. Gittin that come from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. The agent doesn't have to declare this. So maybe this is because he holds that the whole reason for saying this is for places that there are no experts, but in Bavel there are lots of experts. So it's in Mahanigami, right? And so it's an exception to this rule. With Israel, Mar says really, Rabba Isla to Rabba. Again, we say that Rabba agrees with Rabba that you need a declaration for the signatures, so that should apply even to Bavel. No, everyone agrees that that you need it to confirm the signatures. Because there's a lot of traffic between Bavel and Eretz Yisrael, there's plenty of opportunity to examine witnesses.
So other places in Chazal say that it was difficult to travel from Bavel to Eretz Israel.
For example,
I remember reading how difficult it was for Levi to go there to make that trip. That would have been earlier.
Okay, but there is plenty of evidence of people that went back and forth. I mean, it's not clear how often, right? It wasn't like you'd go, this week and come back next week. So how
in the time of the Amoraim, they were part of two empires that were at war with each other most of the time.
Mm-hmm. So it would have been, you think, even more difficult?
It would have been more difficult while Jews did not ordinarily serve in the armies of either empire, they by going from one to the other, you could be accused of treason.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I can imagine that that they didn't care about individual travelers. It was divisions of armies that were the case. No. I wonder if you could make an analogy to like air travel to Israel, right? I mean, now it's very commonplace, right? You can go a few times a year. That would be unusual, but a couple of generations ago, it was possible to go, and people did go, but they didn't go very frequently. It was expensive, and there wasn't a lot of availability in the early days of international air travel. So
also much less expensive. It is much less expensive today than it once was.
Yeah, depending on what class of service you choose.
Well, first class now is what coach was 50 years ago.
Really? In inflation adjusted dollars?
In actual dollars.
In actual dollars.
It's amazing how airfares have barely increased in 40, 50 years.
Interesting. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, "Man lema one Rabbi Yosef bar Samcha." What makes you think that Rabbi Yosef is a reliable observer? So that's an unusual question. Okay, well, it is what it is. The ode, and furthermore, Ha'iyu the Shalach Leila Rabbi Yehuda, that was he himself who sent a letter to Rabbi Yehuda. Bnei Adam Ha'olin Mishal Makan, people who go up from Babel to Eretz Yisrael. Hein Kimu Biasma Vayinu Hayel Bezona Vayelda Machor Bayayim Vayishu. They've sold the boy for the money for the prostitute, and girls they sold for wine to drink. So, first of all, he's criticizing people who leave the yeshivas of Bavel, even to go there to Israel, which is a little unusual. But I can certainly see that. I mean, I don't think you'll find anybody saying that today, but I guess they consider the yeshivas of the land of Israel to be inferior. So anyway, but besides that, because of the label of Sirtut, and Rabbi Vyasar wrote this proof text on parchment without scoring the lines. Remember Rabbi Yitzchak? Shtayim Kosher. Rabbi Yitzchak says when you're writing out a verse from Tanakh, you can write two words without scoring a line. Shalosh shein kosrin, but at least if there's at least three words, you have to write them. You have to write them with a line so that they'll be neat looking and they'll be organized right, and one line will run into another. Rabbi Yasser didn't comply with this, right? He's saying that this letter he wrote was without scoring the lines, and there were definitely more than three words in this from the verse that he wrote. And there's another view that at least four words, but he had more than four words also. So looks like Rabbi Yasser wasn't so firm. So maybe we shouldn't rely on him. Amarle Abaye. Abaye said, "Atu kol yada hadra Yitzchak lav gavur Rabbahu." What you think? Because he doesn't know this one thing, he's not a Talmid Chacham, right? He never heard this rule, right? So you don't have to know everything in order to be considered a reliable Talmid Chacham. But he knew a lot, right? He didn't know this one thing. There's always something new you can learn. Bishlamar Milsa Natalia Biswara. All right, I understand that it's something that's like a logical conclusion, right? If you're not able to correctly make a kal v'chomer or other logical deductions, fine. So then you could say, oh, this guy is not so smart, right? Not reliable. Hagamarahi, but this what we're talking about, let's say you have to score the lines on the parchment. This is it's a tradition, right? It's something that you would have had to hear from a teacher, right? It's not something you could figure out. It's something you have to be taught. So he didn't learn this yet. He didn't have the opportunity to learn this yet. That doesn't mean he's not reliable. And not only that, about Rabbi Yasar, Rabbi Yasar, who the asking Mariel Yave. Rabbi Yasar was actually approved by God, by his master. Dichsiv, Vatizna alav Pilaksha. Referring to the story of the Pilagish Begiba at the end of Shoftim, right? So now we're going to digress a little bit. In what way did this guy's concubine displease him, right? Or subvert his authority? Rabbi Yasser says he found a fly in the soup, right? That's what he was angry with her about. Rabbi Yasser says he found a hair, presumably in his soup, although we'll see what this is talking about. And that's what made him angry. Rabbi Yasser wants to count the Eliyahu and Nabi. Amalei Mike Hakadosh Baruch Hu. He said to him, "What's God doing today?" Amalei Asik Pilagish Begiva. God is learning this chapter Pilagish Begiva. The Umay Kamar. So Rabbi Yasser says, so like, what does he have to say about it? Amalei Eliyahu says to him, "Yasser b'ni kachu omer, Yasser b'ni kachu omer." He's looking at this dispute. God is saying, I wonder who's right here, Rav Yasser or Yonasan. So Amalei, so Rav Yasser doesn't understand. Chas v'shalom miika sveika kamishmaya. What? God doesn't know the answer? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, we have an argument. Me and Rav Yonasan have an argument. We don't know the true answer, but God must know the true answer. Amalei, says, actually, they're both true. Both of you are right. And so God isn't saying, I don't know who's right. He's saying Rav Yasser has part of the truth and Yonasan has part of the truth. How so? Zvuv matzav lo hikbid. He found the fly and he didn't care. That wasn't such a big deal. Nima matzav lo hikbid. But then he found the hair, and the cumulative effect of the fly and the hair is what got him angry. Amar Zvuv bakara. Rav Yehuda says, "What is this? What did he find? The fly he found in the soup. The nima ba'osamachim. The hair he found in her genitals." Zvuv miusa. So the fly, that's just disgusting to find the fly in your soup. Nima sakanta, but finding a hair, she didn't groom herself properly and there was a long hair there, that is actually dangerous. I don't want to speculate on how exactly that's dangerous, but that's the difference. Some say no, some say we're talking about the soup, only talking about the soup. Zvuv unsa, the fly, she could have checked the soup, served the soup, and then the fly comes along. It's not her fault, right? And Nima pshiusa, but the hair, that happened in the kitchen. That didn't happen while she was serving the soup. So, she should have checked the soup for the hair. So that's why he became angry about the hair. This teaches you, don't be too strict, right? Don't make people in your family too afraid of you, or in your household too afraid of you. The husband of Pilegesh Begiva, he was too strict. The end of that story was a civil war, and lots of people died. Tens of thousands of people died. Rav Yehuda said, if you are too strict with your household, you're going to come to transgress three things: gilui arayos, sexual improprieties; shvichus damim, bloodshed; v'chilul Shabbos, and desecration of Shabbos. How this the Mefarshim explain like why these three, because gilui arayos, if you're too angry, too exacting with your wife about going to the mikvah, then she could be too afraid and lie to you, and you'll be sleeping with her when she's still in nida. Gilui arayos, we saw the incident of Pilegesh Begiva, and Chilul Shabbos, like if you're too tough with your wife, like is the soup hot yet? And did you light candles, or is it candle lighting time already? And she'll say, no, I still have to warm it up, but it's actually really Shabbos. You'll come to Chilul Shabbos. Okay. Baruch Rabba said, that which the rabbi said, that there's three things you have to check at when it gets dark on Friday. Did you separate maser from everything we're going to eat on Shabbos? And did you prepare the eruv for the for carrying in the courtyard? And hadlikos in there, light. It's time to light the candles. Sorry, you have to say it gently so that people will accept it from you. So same idea, right? If you're too strict, people will be afraid to give you the true answer. I hadn't heard this teaching, but I figured it out myself. I understood this without having to learn it in yeshiva, that you should treat the people of your household, you should speak to them gently and not too tough. Okay, we'll pick it up here tomorrow.
Yashar, isn't screwing up the food one of the reasons it's given in the last Mishnah of Gittin for the grounds for divorce?
Yes, that's right. It's one of the opinions, though.
Yeah. Rashi's comment on the opening of the concubine of Gibeah is that she did not that she screwed up food, but she went out and went to other men.
Right. Well, that's the plain meaning of the verse.
Yeah.
So this is some kind of polemic, I suppose.
Yeah. Softening it. Well, we're not biblical literalists.
Right.
Yashar, see you tomorrow.
All right.